know, and I'll check to see what's going on. You have until the end of January to renew via the website without having to contact me prior. At the end of January, I'll turn off anybody that hasn't renewed, and we'll also upload all the other competitions so you can start submitting your pictures for that. So other than that, that's all I had to say.
Excellent, thank you. Lynn has our information about our judge.
Okay, hang on now, I just had it. Hold on. Okay, hi everybody. Tonight we have John Stritzinger as our judge, and he's been here before. You've seen him a few times. He's a fine art photographer living in Elkins Park, Pennsylvania, and actively participates in the Philadelphia area's photography community. His work spans diverse subjects and has won awards while being exhibited in group shows in more than 30 galleries and museums. John's work has been published in Black and White magazine and Lenswork books. So welcome, John. Oh, and I know that tonight's subject is depth of field, shallow depth of field. And I know that you have some of your photos that you're going to show us after you.
Sure, I can share just a few photos and just take a moment to do that. Here we go. I'm going to share my screen. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes, yes.
So, you know, shallow depth of field can be many different subjects in many ways. So this is a photograph taken, you know, in the field, trying to expose for the flowers and that little bug on them. So, you know, that was a nice image. That's actually an image taken in the pine lands, and those are blue gentian flowers, which are rare and only found in the pinelands. So that was kind of a cool capture. Sometimes with a longer lens, you have the focal length that provides the shallow depth of field as opposed to the aperture or the closeness to the subject. And with a more blown out background, you really can focus on, you know, just the specific element like a bird. Sometimes the background can be not quite blown out, but adds something to the story or the impact of the image. In this case, the focus is pretty much on the head of that rooster, and the rest of it in the background perhaps adds a little bit of confusion to what he may be thinking. Sometimes you can put it in context, like in an environment, and this was a photo taken at the Simeone Auto Place down in sort of down near the John Hines, it's not the same thing, but it's close to the John Hines Wildlife Center down there, and it's a wonderful place to see historic automobiles. And during the snowstorm, I went out in the snow last, you know, a few days ago when it was snowing, and I just walked around in my neighborhood over to our local park, and there were these lovely seed pods, and tried to capture them against the snow. And that was
lovely.
So that's a few from me. I'm going to stop my share.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Now,
all right.
Matt, can I just ask you, on the right, on all of these names, can you get rid of those names for me and just put John's picture up there? John's video?
That's settings that you would have to change.
So, then you might be able to click that view box and select speaker.
It is on speaker, but everybody else is, you know, I have all the names going down.
Oh, I see. Well,
Rid of them. Oh, wait, you know what? There are things up on top. Maybe, okay. Thank you. Whoever did it. I don't know who did it, but thank you. It's okay.
Okay.
All right. We're going to start with group one here. We have 6 images. So I'll go through them really quick
Okay.
and then we'll score the contest. All right, now we'll score it.
Okay.
Trail marker.
Yes, there's something about the sort of sculptural piece there that must have captured your attention, trying to focus on just those stones. And I love the shape that they form, and you placed it in a great location in the frame. A couple things to think about is, your distance from that wall behind it. The wall isn't quite blurred out, even though it's not in focus, and you've clearly captured a shallower depth of field than you might want. Perhaps an even shallower one would keep our attention on the subject. It's also fairly bright in the foreground, so there's so much brightness from the sun on those stones and the green that if those were toned down a little bit, then we'd really be focusing on just the stones even more so. So sometimes it's a combination of not just what's in focus, but what is bright in the frame that bring us in there. So this is a 7. Thanks.
Pink Gerber.
And it is so pink. It's lovely, just a lovely, lovely flower. And, here your focus has been placed really right on the center of that Gerber and, catch a little of the petals. And then as the petals begin to go back, gets a little softer. And there's a couple of bits, like at the very top left corner of the frame, there's a piece of something that's come forward and is kind of in focus. It looks like, must have reached the same plane as the front of the flower. It's good that you made it flat to the camera sensor so that you could try to get as much in focus as you could. And it's a nice capture. Just some things to think about might be, deciding if, some way to keep some of those distractions out around the edges, but nicely done and centered. So that's a 7.
Eye on you.
It's a really interesting berry and plant. I don't know my plants well enough, I'm going to confess, but I really like the energy you've created with this diagonal composition. So you've got a nice, slice of sharpness just across the leaves. I think the leaves themselves are probably what is in the shallowest of the depths of field. And the berry itself is just slightly soft. So one of the difficulties sometimes in capturing a plant is to try to capture just the right piece. So here your focus may be locked on those leaves rather than on the berry, which is probably the subject. A couple of things in the overall image are sort of those leaves at the lower left, some of the brightness on the left and up at the upper top. And at the far right, there's a little white piece on the edge. So some of those little edge things, if those were removed or you came in a little closer, might bring us closer and catch more of that dynamic energy of the plant. That's a 7.
Special day.
Oh, wow. That is just lovely. It is nice to be able to capture, especially when you have something like this um, coming in with a profile. And, I think here, I'm just taking a closer look, it could be that while the depth of field is intended to be, I think, the figure, which it is, everything's just a little soft. Maybe it was slightly dark. Maybe your shutter speed was a little too slow. I'm not quite sure, but things are generally soft. On the other hand, it's a wonderful moment. I love that you've got some separation between her hand and her face, and almost like a little conversation between her hand and her. The flowers in the foreground, capture a piece of the overall event. The tree in the background might be a little distracting, but it's a very nice image. I'm going to give this one an 8.
Butterfly.
This is an excellent capture. Here, what's in focus is the butterfly, and it's fairly, it's not quite exactly flat to the sensor plane, but so you've managed to get not just the butterfly, but also almost all of the flower in focus and really blurred out the background. It's a fairly, nice even background. It's got some extra, specular highlights sort of around the bottom, but the colors and the sharpness of the main object are really exceptional here, and very nicely done. So I'm going to give this an 8.
Signs of spring.
With the wacky weather we have, it's possible the cherry trees are going to do this next week, but we'll have to wait and see. But it's just lovely. Terrific to have captured, with your shallow depth of focus, those the flowers which are right in the very front. So we've got a specific subject with some of the softness, but nevertheless some of the sharpness there on the petals, which is a nice combination. There's definitely some blown out highlights. You can see the sharp whiteness right behind the pink, and there's a white sort of patch at the top and at the far left, and probably from the sky. And then there's some intense blue, which does provide a nice contrast against the pink. So it's sort of trying to control those highlights would improve the overall image. Next time you take it, you might want to expose closer for the highlights and underexpose a little, and then maybe bring up in post-processing the flowers in the foreground. It's a very nice image. This is a 7.
All right, we've got 2 8s. So I need a first and second out of those.
I was going to ask you, Matt, what you were looking for in terms of number of awards here. Sorry about that. Got to ask.
Yeah, first, second, and third for this group.
Okay. First is going to go to the butterfly here,
Okay.
and second will go to our bride. I think in this case, this image has a great story as well as being nice. And so I think the story and the impact of that with the light on her veil offsets some of the technical issues there with the softness.
And then out of these 4, I need a third place. So this is image 1, image 2, image 3, and the 4th one.
I'm going to go with the inanimate object, the stone. I thought it was a nice, having seen something like that, perhaps on the side of the road or somewhere where it's, just kind of like, oh, that probably didn't just fall that way. I think that's a nice capture and something a little different. So I'm going to give that third place.
All right. And we'll review this contest. As soon as I get some windows out of my way.
Third place. Trail marker, Susan Freeman. Congratulations, Susan.
Yeah, I was going to
Second
ask
place.
where that was. Does Susan's around, but I don't know if I'm allowed to ask.
Oh, yeah. Second place is Special Day, Susan Freeman. Congratulations, Susan.
Yeah, it doesn't look like she's online.
No worries.
All right, our second group, there's actually 0 images, so we're going to be skipping that group.
Okay.
Really? Wow.
So we're going to go to group 3. There's 27 images, so it's first, second, third, and 5 HMs.
Okay, they went by the other ones zipped through in the beginning, so maybe those first couple just a little slower, maybe just 1/2 an extra second. Thanks.
All right, and here we go.
Puffin and his flower.
He does seem very proud, as if he is the gardener at the edge of the cliff, saying, "Hey, look at this." He seems like he's been posing for more than just one photographer. So here, the depth of field is nicely shallow. The sharpness is really, captured just along the bird and the plant and its flower. And I think the fact that, you've captured particularly the bird's eyes are very sharp. His feathers are nicely textured, including the fact that they're white and not blown out is excellent. And while not the entire plant is in focus, I think that that's fine. You still made a very nice composition out of this. This is an 8.
Sing me a song.
So here, a nice moment to capture the bird with its beak open, and definitely getting this, the singing aspect for that. You've got a shallow depth of field on just the bird. I think the difficulty here is trying to get a shallow enough depth of field for this bird, perhaps in its location, how close it is to the vegetation that's just behind. So some of that vegetation is just a little too distracting since it's not quite soft enough. There's also a piece at the very top that's not only sort of bright on the branch, but it's a little bit almost in focus. The bird itself is just terrific. There's also a branch at the lower left that's kind of a slight curve that's just a little distracting. So looking at all those things, I can tell you that this is a gorgeous bird, and maybe just a few of those things updated would improve the overall image. It's very nice though. This is a 7.
Sign of spring.
I think this is very intriguing. It's a little like the puffin image. There's just 2 elements, and so often we're told, keep the number odd, with 3 or 5. But they seem to tell a real wonderful story here. There's the red blossom, if I can call it that, and then the leaf. And you've done a very nice job of separating it from the background with your shallow depth of field. It does look like everything you'd expect to be in focus there is in focus. Not nicely done. And I like the way it drops off, and you've included the bottom of the trees, which gives us a place to keep our eye from just going out of the frame and keeping that in. So it's a very nice image. This is an 8.
Last piece.
Very nice. Not sure about the blue frame around it, although I know sometimes people do like to frame it. It certainly is blue, I'll tell you that. It reminds me of sort of a Tetris piece. And so here, you've got a great depth of field shallow down on just the object itself in the background, and have blown out the object in the foreground. And one of the difficulties my eye's having with it is that because the image is so large in the foreground, and out of focus, I'm kind of feeling a little blocked by that, even though it does provide with its tilt a little bit of a leading line bringing into the other block. So appreciate the color, and against the white, it's a very nice, I would say, a studio image, and you did an excellent job of controlling your depth of focus and the lighting on the pieces. This is a 7.
Spring in all its glory.
I can't wait for the daffodils. I've got a few in my front yard that look somewhat similar. These are just beautiful. I really like the way that you've done the tones in the background here. So you've got a nice plane of focus on the 2 front daffodils, and that gives us a nice transition to the one in the back. So you have your nice set there. I like the colors in the back against the yellow and the blue purple. Very nice complementary colors. Couple things just to take a look at. In the very bottom of the frame, there's a little yellow petal that's just sticking up. That kind of just, if that wasn't there, would keep our eye totally on the focus. And just to the left of the bottom daffodil, there's a small bit of orange peeking through that just kind of disrupts the flow of that edge of that petal. So those are very small things, but overall, it's just got a nice tone and a nice feel. This is an 8.
An orange rose.
You don't see many orange ones. Wow. Wow. Um, Very nice controlling here, the shallow depth of field, and the background, while it's not blown out, just has nice shapes that are complementing and holding the orange. And the orange against the green, almost red against the green, gives us lots of vibrancy and energy. You've placed it just a little bit off center, with the stalk at the bottom, which I think is an excellent choice. Um, and it lets us appreciate the full color of the orange without our eye going too far afield either way. I think it's also good that you kept that leaf to the right inside the frame. It might be a little tight on the edges, and perhaps it could be a little wider, but it's a lovely image. This is an 8.
Agave.
And this is certainly an extreme shallow depth of field. I think we've just got maybe that one thorn in focus, I'm thinking. And it's slightly soft that, it could have been the shutter speed. I don't know if this was handheld or not, but it has an interesting otherworldly feel to it. So while nothing is exactly super sharp in the image, there's definitely a spot where our eye's going for that one thorn that's poking up. There's lots of curves, almost architectural in the background. And those things are providing interest and keeping my eye moving around fairly well. I think the fact that you've got the two lines starting from the right side that are both right at the edge but haven't quite gone off, it gives it a good energy, as you would see in an architectural image. At the very bottom, there's a couple of little white spots at the far left, a little bit of extra light at the bottom that maybe you'd want to darken out a little bit, possibly vignette slightly. But it's quite an interesting image for one that's not technically totally sharp, but it has a good feel. So this is a 8.
Golden Boy.
So again, a really nice capture of the entire blossom with a little bit of the stalk below, like our orange rose, just a couple images back. I think one of the differences here, the greens in the background have been sort of desaturated a little, trying to, I think perhaps the artist is trying to have us focus more on the yellow. And with the lighting, there's a few more shadows and texture that you can see on the yellow flower, which is quite nice. The background doesn't work quite as well with the flower itself in terms of how the shape of the flower is against sort of the straighter stalks in the background. And there's just a little hints of the orange color in the back that are picked up in the center of the yellow. So there's a lot of nice things about about this image. I'm going to give this a 7.
Remembering.
Yeah, it's just such a poignant moment, to have captured this in one of the memorials. I don't know which one. It reminds me, but I don't see the cutout of the names really, of some of the others I've seen in New York. So this is really nice. Clearly, the depth of field and the sharpness is everything is marked around the star. And I think that the star, you can't really take your eye off that. You want to read the message, see what it is. So there's a lot of story in this image, and I think that that is its strength and impact. I think the yellow line is a little distracting because although it is yellow and blue in terms of where the colors are showing up, it's a little bright at the top, and I keep moving my eye up to the yellow, and away from the star itself. So I like the story a lot, but I think that some of the technical aspects like that are just enough to give this a 7. And it's a very nice image. I'm glad you captured it.
One is a lonely number.
Yeah, here we have another lovely blossom. In this case, having the full stalk coming up to it. It's definitely soft, you know. I don't know if that's shutter speed or the wind moving around or something, but even though you have a plane of focus that's the flower, it by itself is soft, and that's always one of the difficulties if you've been outdoors and it's not a perfectly still day or it's in a dark area, but might just be the breeze. There's a what else is sharp in the image is there's a little piece at the very bottom of the image that is pretty sharp, and it kind of distracts because it's poking up and you know, doesn't quite fit with everything else that's going on. Kind of a little bright in the background, so it's a nice image, nice color. No doubt it would be hard to ignore taking a photo of such a beautiful flower. Very nice. This is a 7.
Slicing a cuke.
Yeah, so here I think the artist was going for a little like some portraits where you take a little bit off the head and kind of come in a little tightly on it. I think what's in focus here is Oxford Hall cutlery. It would probably be a nice advertisement image, perhaps something like that, you know, used in, you know, product promotion, perhaps. I think in this aspect, the fact that the tip of the knife just pokes out of the frame, the cucumber just pokes out of the frame at the top. And what I'm seeing is the knife and not really the cucumber is being in focus. So I think if your knife was your subject, you've definitely set the plane of focus there. And if you wanted to get the feel of the cucumber, maybe you could have increased your depth of field just a little to included the sharpness on that. This is a 7.
Meet the Beatles.
They are something. I think I've seen some of these before, maybe not these very ones, but you know, they are just taking a look here at the image a little closer. Yeah, I love the softness in the white tassels that are coming from this, I guess, milkweed. And that's the most interesting thing here, even though, you know, where the line kind of goes just about off to the left there from the white, it's very nice. The bugs are nice and orange. They're nicely arranged. There's just kind of quite a mix as to which ones are in focus or not. I feel that what's in focus is really the milkweed more so than the bugs that are around it. There's also a branch going up to the left that goes out of the frame and a branch that's out of focus to the right going out of the frame, and then the branch to the right going out. And so all three of those things, I don't know that they quite hold the image. I think my eye tends to go a little out of the frame because of those. And it's a tough subject. It's against a very nice background, and you controlled the color beautifully. I'd say wait till next fall, get some more milkweed. It's just gorgeous. This is a 7.
Passing shower.
Just lovely to see, you know, the leaves that are there, and you've got your focus very clearly on those leaves and that front branch. I think the leaves themselves, especially the one at the left, is quite sharp. Everything else is just a little out of the plane of focus, but you certainly have it distinguished from the background. It's what most of us might perhaps call a fairly busy image, since there's a lot of textures and things going on, as well as in the foreground and the background. The placement of that leaf in the lower right corner tends to pull the eye over there, as well as the bright leaves above it on the right-hand top side. And so even though the subject is probably that leaf on the left, and you maybe included that leaf on the right because you liked how the lines went down, it feels like the two leaves are fighting with each other a little bit and getting my attention. Otherwise, I love the colors, a very nice palette. This is a 7.
Lovely flower.
It is. There's nothing like a coneflower in the summer. Ours, unfortunately, have had trouble getting nice petals on them, so we've given them up. We go to someone else's garden to look at them in the neighborhood. You know, this is nice. You've got the bee's head quite sharp in the very front of the flower and the petals. The sharpness tends to tail off on the bee's wings and back again on the the flowers. So in this type of an image, one might expect to see, either a very, very, piece of sharpness here, or a little less or a little more, but it's nicely done. The colors are very striking, having that green background that you've maybe oversaturated a little, but it's certainly striking against the pink. Really sets off the flower, and you've tried to come in on it and leave just enough of the petals on the right, that looks nice. So nice capture, very nice. This is a 7.
Coming right at you.
Yeah, always a difficult capture if the bird's flying right at you to get the focus to lock on. It looks like the eye is pretty sharp. I would say maybe the feathers on the body are even sharper and just slightly off on the wing. And I'm just pointing out some of those things, the technical, everything in absolute, sharpness for some bird photography. It's got a wonderful draping feel in the frame. It might be nice if it had a little more room on the left-hand side in general, that just being the usual, place to fly into. But I like how you placed it in the frame with a little tilt to it, giving it some energy as it's moving forward. It's nicely composed, and it looks it's quite sharp. This is an 8.
On the hunt.
Yeah, when this one came through, I wanted to just take a closer look at it because those eyes, it's not possible, I think, to take your eyes off the eyes, at least at the very beginning. And it's got a very striking shape, and the background is really, really blown out. It'd be ideal if the white at the bottom wasn't quite as white, but you've done a nice job of toning it down a bit, giving it some grays. And so this gray blue feel that makes me think of winter, which perhaps is when this was taken. And the sharpness of those eyes is just really, really exceptional. Love the shape in the frame. This is a 9.
Knock them down.
I like the inventiveness of using something as simple as dominoes. We all know, seeing that shape, you only need to really see that first domino, and the fact that you've made this one include some pips on it, the 5 and the 3, and all the others do not, I think gives it an added strength. You've created a really nice S curve with your S that it's about to knock down, and keeping it against the black background. It's a nice choice with these white tiles. Couple things, since it seems a little like it's floating in space and we don't quite see, I don't think, I'm just going to check here if there is a reflection. There may be a slight reflection like on a table. I think having a little reflection under them, it would help it a little bit, but it's inventive and it fits your frame nicely. You did a good job. This is an 8.
Twosies.
So here, shallow depth of field, there's no question that you've worked on that for the ball with just and the 2 jacks here that are in focus, and the other things are out of focus. I think having the out of focus directly in front of that red ball is not helping the image. I think it stops us from coming in to see what's there. When it's a still life like this, you have the ability to place things wherever you'd like them. And in this case, I'm finding it a little distracting to move all the way into the image because of that red. You have controlled the highlights nicely, the color nicely. You've definitely made sure your plane of focus is just on the parts that you wanted as your subject. All those are excellent things. And it's nice to have the one red item and the blue, but the blue being, sort of with their spikes kind of balances against the red, and you did a nice job with those 2 elements. This is a 7.
Nudie branches. Oh, sorry.
Underwater Wonders, I think it said.
I don't know, I missed it.
I think it said nudie branches were underwater wonders, I think. I'm not positive. There's something very evocative here about the softness of of everything except sort of the texture underneath this and the tips of these little ferns that are kind of floating inside. It's quite an interesting piece there. You know, I like the color and the placement in there. I like the fact that you use the two diagonals, particularly, you know, underneath it. It'd be nice in a way if the wood underneath was maybe all soft and it was really what was in the side there was maybe the only thing that had sort of the sharpness. But there's a certain dreamy quality as if it's just floating there, and the rest of the background is beautifully blown out, and it's an excellent color scheme. This is an 8.
Antelope Canyon Sandfall.
Wow. It's getting there at the right time, I think, to see to catch the light coming down. It is beautiful. In this case, you know, it has the feel as though much of it is in focus. So I'm just kind of double checking here, but you know, you've got the walls of the canyon are in focus, and you've got the sand at the bottom is in focus, and the thing that's falling down is in focus. So this is less of a shallow depth of field as opposed to a more most of the images in focus type thing. I like the sort of I don't know, it has maybe it's the piece at the top. I feel like I'm looking at an elephant sitting there, you know, waiting for something in the background. Um, on the technical aspects, you know, the highlights are really bright, possibly even blowing out a little in the white areas in the middle of the frame. And so if you're able to control those in post-processing and maybe darken some of the areas around, and particularly at the bottom, so that what our focus is on is just those streams of sand, I think that, you know, that would give us a wonderful focus for the image. This is a 7.
Queen Anne's Lace.
So here, the shallow depth of field is on those elements at the far left of the frame, and then everything else is quite soft. Everything actually is soft. There's nothing that's really sharp in here, so it has that kind of dreamy quality that you know, you might get from, you know, the camera moving, maybe with a lens baby optic, or your just intentional decision to make it very soft like this. I think compositionally, it's hard to balance those bright pink, red, white pieces at the left because they're quite far to the left with what's on the right. There is some green over there, but it feels a little heavy because it's so the contrast between the brightness and that more or less sharpest, even if it's not sharp area, the dark green really keeps our attention over there. So I'm feeling a little too tugged to the left here to appreciate the entire image. But I really do love the softness in the colors. It's a nice dreamy image. This is a 7.
Oriental Pine.
Wow, this one is really interesting. I think you would rarely see, you know, under an Oriental pine. I live close to Morris Arboretum, which is the University of Pennsylvania's Arboretum outside, just at the edge of Philadelphia, and I think they actually have one of these. So, not sure where you took the image. You know, a little like the other image, you know, since you've got that, you know, the sharpness is nicely controlled here. So you have a great shallow depth of field, you know, very nice blowing out far background, just a little element in the back there that's kind of touching things that maybe takes our ray away a little. But that strong red, sharp area on the right is so far to the right, it really needs something to balance it, because I'm kind of looking at the juncture of the Y shape that creates some very nice triangles in the image. And then I'm looking back at the red and the Y shape in the red. And so I feel like the red is just doesn't have enough room to breathe in this image. It's just a little too tightly tucked in. But great play with colors with the green and the red, and appreciate your sharpness and the way you were able to control your depth of field. This is a 7.
Hanging Around.
This has a feel, it's a very high key image, you know, with the blown out background, very white. I think one of the elements that is strong for the image is, you know, starting with it from the lower right corner up to the left, you have a nice diagonal, so it has good energy. It's not just a flower stuck in the middle of the frame. So I think you've done a nice job with that compositional element. There's a lot of blown highlights on the flowers themselves, though. So it's hard to appreciate the pink flowers because they're hard to see because of all the bright and the highlights. So you maybe just, if you're going to do a high key, you might want to expose the flowers and then maybe work on your background in post-processing, or maybe find another way to control that exposure. So good composition, good idea in terms of setting it up, and maybe just work a little bit on controlling your exposure. This is a 7.
Spring Awakening by a Coreopsis, whatever.
On field, something like that. Yes, yeah. Oh, this just has this sort of a happy winter, happy December look, very sharp, extremely well controlled in terms of exposure here, as well as the sharpness. You've got every element of the front of that, looking very sunflower-like, and then the burst of color and the yellow and the red. Nothing's too oversaturated. It's just very nicely done. And you've got it against with the greens. It provides a really nice tone in the background, and there's just enough of the whitish stones in the back between the green and yellow on the left that it really helps the petals stand out all around. It's nicely composed, being just a little bit off center, and maybe the only thing would be to kind of tuck in a little bit on the whites in the background, just a little, maybe just vignette slightly, since it might fit well around the round flower, and that might bring our eye just a little more even to that center image. But it's really nicely done floral image. This is a 9.
Dominoes.
I don't know if it's the same photographer, but these are black dominoes versus white, so perhaps not. I think one of the difficulties here might be that it just feels, I'm just taking a closer look, that domino, that's the 2 6s on it. Probably it's sharp. It's certainly where the plane of focus is, and we're kind of going into the middle of the frame, and it's an interesting composition in that you're having the dominoes come pouring out of the left side of the frame into sort of an open space on the right, with just a little bit of the table's corner showing at the far top. So it's kind of an interesting composition in that little bit of corner, at the top right, is echoed maybe in the edge of the domino. This one doesn't have sort of the implied excitement, other than maybe the double 6s being a good tile, because kind of popped out and said, look at me before I disappear. So I like your sense of humor that's in here. There's quite a bit of brightness in the lower left corner. And if that was toned down, I think that would help us enter into the picture a little bit better, so that we'd get to that center where you've got the brightest parts next to the pips. Nicely done image. This is a 7.
Lotus Blossom.
This has that nice, very nice, soft, I'm going to say textured tone to it. There could be a texture that's been added to the image, which if it has, I think that's fine. I'm not sure, if no texture, that's fine too. The flower itself is quite magnificent, tilted on an angle, creating a nice framing, of it in the center of the frame. I think the difficulties here are maybe how it's interacting a little bit with the background. So there's a lotus unopened, I think, blossom just to the left of the blossom in the background that's sort of yellow and brown. And since it intersects with the petals, it kind of keeps our eye from really fully appreciating the lotus in the foreground. On the far right, because the gray is somewhat bright and it's outlined with the edge of that leaf close to it, that creates some additional visual tension on the right that also pulls us a little bit. So we're being tugged just a little bit away from this beautiful flower and that wonderful soft background. A lovely image though, and I like the tones and qualities in it. This is a 7.
Venus.
This is really fun. It must be part of a display somewhere. I wish I knew where. I don't. In this case, I'm just trying to get a sense about, it feels like what's in focus, I think, are the most forward parts of this because the focus begins to fall off at the top of this ball. And so while it's pretty shallow depth of field on this image, and it has a nice little tilt to it and all, I think the other things that maybe you'd want to think about in the image are how it interacts with what's around it. So at the left, you have the bowl that's next to it being touched by the orange petals, which kind of go all the way in and touch the bar. So I think that's kind of interfering with it. There's a little bright spot at the top, middle, just a little to the right of middle, and a gray spot at the left that probably are just slight distractions. And then the pink in the background is nicely saturated, but it does kind of keep our eye moving away from our front subject. So, those are things you might want to think about in terms of lining up to get the picture the next time is how could you improve what's in the background and avoid some of the contact with the other parts. This is a 7.
All right, we have 2 9s. I need a first and second from those.
Okay, and how many are we looking at all together here?
It's first, second, third, 5 HMs.
Okay, the first and second among these first 2?
Correct. So we have the owl or the flower.
The owl is first place, and
Okay.
the flower is second place. The coreopsis.
All right. And then we have 8 8s. So I need a third. And then I need 5 HMs.
Okay, so 6 out of the 8, is that correct?
Correct. So this is image 1, image 2, image 3, image 4, image 5, image 6, image 7, and image 8.
Okay, do you want me to do the third first or the honorable mentions?
The third first.
First, image number 2, the pink and the green images, those 2.
This one here.
That one there, third place.
All right.
And
And
so
then I need 5 HMs.
in no particular order, one of the HMs is our puffin and his the proud puffin and his flower. Another honorable mention is the orange rose, just to the right of the daffodils, image number
2,
4, I guess it is there. Another honorable mention is the bird that we're looking at right now that's coming toward us, coming right at you. The dominoes, knock them down, is also an honorable mention.
So we have this one, this one,
And the daffodils.
daffodils.
The one more honorable mention will be the last image. I don't know what it is, but it just has a nice story going with the colors and the shapes.
So it's 1, 2, 4, 5. Okay. Perfect.
Great.
We'll review this contest.
Honorable mention. Puffin and his flower, Terry Donofrio. Congratulations, Terry.
That's great, Terry. Where did you get that puffin? You're online here. Care to comment?
I would assume Alaska.
He
Hmm.
did. He got it in Alaska at one of the islands. And orange rose, John Sandstead. Congratulations, John. Coming right at you, Terry Donofrio. Congratulations, Terry. Knock 'em Down, Wendy Sisson. Congratulations, Wendy. Nudibranches branches are underwater wonders. Kevin Volk. Congratulations, Kevin. Third place. Sign of Spring, Wendy Sisson. Congratulations, Wendy. Second place, Spring Awakening by Coreopsis grandiflora, Walter Blitz. Congratulations, Walter.
All right, we're going to take a quick 5-minute break here at the library.
Okay.
And then we only have one group left. So I'll make it so everybody can unmute themselves, which you should be able to do now. And we'll be back. All right, we're going to get on with our last group here, which is going to be group 4.
Okay.
We have 20 images, need a first, second, third, 4 HMs. I will go through them really quick.
Okay.
Make sure Lynn is here. Lynn, are you here?
I'm here.
Okay. Lynn, not Linda. All right, we're going to go through them real quick and then we'll start. All right, and here we go.
Okay.
Hibiscus.
So here, capturing all the texture, the water on the petals of the flower, just lovely, beautiful colors. It's an interesting choice of, coming in to just touch the edges of the petals at the top, the left, and the right, and the bottom. At least you're touching on all 4 edges, which is good. And it's come in to really show the beauty of the flower, particularly in the texture. It's nicely done. Maybe it's a little extra bright on some of the lightest petals, but you've done a nice job of controlling it all. This is a 7.
Balloon flower pod.
It's such an unusual piece of vegetation, and the fact that you've captured with your shallow depth of field just really on the pod itself and kept everything else mostly separated from it is very nicely done. There's a few purple flowers at the lower right that are a little in focus, and there's a sort of a green piece on the right side that has the slight feel as if it's, photobombing in on the little bombs of the plant. So those are things that are just slightly distracting, but the main attraction is sharp, beautifully photographed and very nicely done. This is a 7.
In the garden.
Here it's terrific to be able to capture that bee in flight, coming in to, come in and have it be, fairly sharp. And there's some nice, texture and, captured on the yellow tassels of the primary flower, as well as these interesting pods. I think the highlights that are on the top of the petals, the purple petals and the very top pod are a bit bright. And I think that makes it, it kind of pulls away from all of the, the color and the interest that's there. And at the far left, the petals that are the little pods that are aiming off to the left are curling away from the center of the frame, have the feel of pulling us away down to that lower left corner. So composition's not ideal, but it was a very great capture to get that bee in there, and nicely done. It's a 7.
Feeding butterfly.
Certainly the star of the show here is this butterfly, and I'm just looking at it. It almost, I guess it's really standing on this flower. It almost has the feel as though it has been superimposed on it, but it must be, I guess, all of a one. It's just something, different about the lighting, and the orange flower looks so perfect as to be almost not real. But the butterfly is absolutely gorgeous. Terrific color. Has a, with the pinks against the black at the top there, the pinkish yellow, orange beats and the little bits of green. Just really, really nice. There's a petal at the bottom that's behind the stalk that's maybe just a little distracting. You'd have to think about that. This is a 7.
Carnival prize.
I think this is really fun. You've captured a terrific story here. We can see we're at the carnival. Your choice to have the plane of focus be on that initial rubber ducky, I think it is, or something close to it, is great. And then because it starts there, it follows along to the next one, which is slightly out of focus, but follows along that wonderful leading diagonal line of the out of focus railing, keeping everything else out of focus, but not so out of focus that we can't tell what it is. Also captures the environment and does a really nice job of showing that. You also did a excellent job of not blowing out the highlights on the front. Maybe it's just slightly in a couple of the specular white spots, but overall just a nice yellow and perfect focus for what you wanted it to be. Say this is a 9. I like the story and the impact of it. It's fun.
Ready to open.
Yeah, this has not only a really nice shallow depth of field going for it, but great sharpness on the front of that about to open sunflower, and then you still see some of the cilia and the edges of the leaves, and then it just begins to drift off. So I think you've captured just the right amount of detail there, and nice job with the bit of brightness coming in from the lower right across in the diagonal comes right up to it. It's positioned at pretty ideal, golden mean or a thirds rule, you will. And down at the bottom, you've got some interesting kind of brighter pieces. The two sticking up almost look like they are the ears of a little interesting being. So I think that's nice and out of focus, maybe pulls it just slightly, but overall a very good image. This is an 8.
Ants at work.
Here it's such a colorful, beautiful flower that this ant is interacting with. And you've chosen to have just that first blossom with the ant pretty close to in focus. It's certainly it's in focus. I think the sharpness is just at a very, very narrow, sharp part there. And there's a little bit of sharpness on that piece that sticks up like a prod on the right, and then the yellow in the background. So I think, the ant isn't quite he's hiding a little bit, so he's not quite out front and center. So he's slightly distracting in terms of where he is, as opposed to being the star of the play. He seems a bit of a reluctant actor here, to be honest. But I like the color and the placement of things in the frame. You've done a really nice job with that. You might consider toning down some of the brighter light greens in the background in terms of enhancing the image. This is a 7.
White orchid.
Yeah, this is you've chosen to get just the edge of that leaf and the inside of the orchid, and everything else, mostly there's a few other sharp areas on some of the leaves, but you've done a nice, very nice shallow depth of field. That little S curve that kind of, is just below there, it's part of the orchid, is also a really nice element. Um, You've got two little black spots, kind of little triangles poking out from the background. Those are just maybe slightly distracting, but overall it's a nicely captured image, and the fact that you've kept your focus so narrow really, I think, adds a little bit of mystery and wonder to the overall image. It's nicely done. This is an 8.
Family of 3.
So this is a really nice, fun, story for sure, story image. We've got, it's maybe a little soft, in terms of the ideal for this. So maybe it was taken at a distance and cropped in quite a bit. The sharpest piece possibly in the frame is the leaves on the far left. So there's some leaves just to the left of our family. And so, if those were softer, I think, that would enhance the ability to just see the folks here. It's also quite bright in a way in the foreground. There's a whole strip of white. So do you really need that? Could this be more of a, instead of say 2x3, maybe more of a 16:9 format? So you're really just seeing the green coming right up into them. And instead of them being dead center, they're kind of the lower third center of the image. So those are a couple things to think about. Otherwise, very nice image. This is a 7.
Cuddling on the beach.
These are just gorgeous little animals here. I'm thinking bears. They probably are bears. If not, they're very furry swimmers. So I'm going to say they're bears. They're terrific. Nice sharpness, nice keeping the depth of field to just underneath the sand around them. The front one in particular is really nice and sharp, and you've kept the sharpness all the way pretty well to the face of the one in the back. So that is really nice to have both of them in focus. It's very well done. That the shadow that goes off to the right is kind of like pulls slightly. You might want to, maybe lighten the shadow just slightly to the right, so it doesn't pull quite as much. And there's a little tuft of black right behind the white fur above the bottom one, which is kind of nice. It offsets it, sets it off, and it also is, just a little bit not quite the rest of the faces. So an excellent image, though. This is an 8.
Toucan.
Wow, I don't know how you found him, saw him up there in the. Do they sit still long enough? It's a nice capture. Perhaps he's moving around. His focus is clearly made to be on him, but everything's just a little bit soft in the feathers in there. So generally those things are not ideal, technically for the bird photo. There's some bright spots in the background that, and particularly the color right behind his head and next to the beak, that make it a little tricky to pull him totally out of the picture and out of his background. So although you did blow out the background in the distance, there's some branches that are maybe interfering with the ideal shallow depth of focus. But a colorful, fantastic image to have captured. This is a 7.
Milkweed.
This is just a lovely capture. You might remember a milkweed from one of the earlier images in different category. And, this one has a lot of that same wonderful sharpness among all of the white threads. In this case, there's not much distraction at all in the background, and we get to see the pod placed nicely in the frame, little, tilted at a little angle. It's on a nice third. So all of those are good compositional choices. The colors are very nicely done. The light is handled. Nothing seems blown out. It's technically good. And it has a nice story. It's sort of a time and a place in the world. In the background, some of those brighter little yellow spots that you see, particularly to the just to the lower right, maybe they're a little distracting, and you might want to consider, if they weren't there, how would the image look? But overall, very nicely done. This is an 8.
Alien plants.
Yeah, when I saw this one come through, I thought this is definitely alien looking. It does have, I don't know if it's the light that's on it, probably, or maybe the treatment in post-processing. Um, but it's a nice and an interesting composition. You've kept some of the dancing greens in the background, which maybe is like a little chorus to these three singers in the front with their unusual shapes. Since all three in the foreground are not in focus, the one on the left's a bit soft. It's a little tricky to take it all in. I think the best thing going for it is this green color that is, saturated but not oversaturated and kind of glowing. And I think that does give it that alien thing. So very nicely done. Um, Tough one here. I'm gonna say I'm gonna give this an 8.
Little white flower.
Yes, there's something nice about having just the one flower, amid it appears in the background to be, another sort of a Y or V-shaped piece that's out of focus in browns. And here we have browns and some of the greens. And so it just has a certain perseverance to have decided to be out here. So I'm glad you saw that and captured that. You also kept at the very top of the frame, kept the branch just into the frame, which I think is a good choice to avoid us just going, right out of the frame there. You positioned it very nicely. It's a very nicely done. I think you've got a great shallow depth of focus here, and I just think the flower is slightly soft. I'm just looking at it, up close, and it's just not sharp, sharp, sharp. But otherwise, it's really a nice image. So this is a 7.
Sun drenched.
Yeah, so here it's both the color and choosing to have your focus on sort of the mid, if you will, the bright yellow color against the blue and the white in the background. Um, Trying to decide about the white in the foreground. It's quite a very bright white on the left-hand side of the two where the sun was hitting it. And it's so bright against the yellow that it's maybe pulling my eye a little away compositionally. But the fact that you've, aligned the edges of the windows, you've kept the full windows in, we have that nice blue across the top, the yellow in the center at about, in the bottom third is all very nice. But the fact that the whole bottom third is this white piece to kind of go over is a nice little peekaboo. And maybe if the left side or the entire wall was just darkened down a little bit, we'd be able to go back across it and really appreciate the yellow in the middle even more. Very lovely capture. It makes me think it was taken in Greece, even though it might have been somewhere here, in New Jersey or PA. This is a 7.
Bug eyes.
And so they are. So they are chasing something, they've seen something, and you've really got the sharpness pretty good. I think he's in such motion that, he's slightly soft, but the eyes make up for all that because of the great contrast around the eyes. Certainly the shallow depth of field is primarily on just that boy and his glove. Everything else is a little bit soft. There's a few things on the right that are in focus, whatever they are. They appear to be, I haven't really close enough at them, like they're cup holders, perhaps. But I like the story. I like that you captured a difficult to capture moment. A couple things might be sort of the white in the background on the white of the jersey and the white of the woman in the front. Those are things that are maybe pulling us away from the boy in the middle. But overall, it's a very nice image. You've also got a little piece of turquoise at the lower right and a person poking in from the right side. So just take a look at those edges and see if there's anything else you might want to do as well as, tone down everything but that center bug eye. This is an 8.
Fence fungus.
Terrific shallow depth of field. You've really focused on just a portion of this fungus. getting sort of the very tip-top reds and a couple of pieces around it. Probably ideal, you'd want to have a little more of the fungus in focus, but it's beautiful. It's just a lovely color. Compositionally, I think you placed it well. It has a fairly calm feel because, you divided the frame equally between the green and the gray foreground, and the gray foreground being just a little out of focus helps us to focus more on the subject. There's one piece that's just a little distracting, which is a fuzzy little bit kind of just left of center, along with that little stalk that's sticking up. Those are just a little distracting away from, the thing on the right. That's the fungus. But I like the way you've composed it in the colors and your treatment on the shallow depth of field. This is an 8.
Lunch break.
Great moment to capture two birds, each with something in their mouth, as though you've asked them to look at your assistant while you took the photograph of them. They just seem as posed as models can be. So a terrific capture to get them both looking in that same direction. You've got really great sharpness across, the subjects, everything but maybe the very, very front edge of the wood. So everything you want in focus, everything blown out behind it, probably taken with, I'm going to guess, a 500 or 600 millimeter lens, or maybe a 200 millimeter. Really nice, just an excellent capture. It tells a story. It has color, lovely, very nicely done. This is a 9.
The miniature bicycle.
Well, this is fun. I love that it's, as far as shallow depth of field goes, it's a great fit for the topic, in that the only thing in focus is really that bicycle and the bits underneath. And then by, including all the other bicycles around it, you've done a nice job of keeping our eye where you'd like it to be. I like that it's something a little different, that it's, you found a macro subject that's not a flower or a bug. You found something that's tiny, I'm thinking, and it's just lovely. The one thing on the far left, poking into the purple tire, there's a little yellow-green thing about right in the middle of the left side, and I think that's the only thing that's really, distracting overall in the image. Otherwise, it's very nicely done. This is a 9.
Red fox.
It's a great moment to get him with the tongue coming out, and you've certainly got the depth of field pretty much on just the eye and the front of his face, and then it begins to fade off at the back ear. So very nicely done. It's well composed. I think the background helps it a lot. You've got the lines coming in, to our subject from the upper left corner. You've got a position coming right out of the corner, which I think is a good choice. You've got some lines coming down from the right, and there's pretty good separation from him from the background all around, just enough tonal difference in his fur, as well as the contrast and sharpness on the image. The tongue coming out at that moment, it just gives it that little extra, so we get to see just a peek of those sharp little fox teeth. A very nice image. This is also a 9.
All right. We have 4 9s, so we need a first, second, third from those.
Okay.
This is image 1. This is image 2. Image 3. And the 4th.
Okay. First place is going to go to our 2 bluebirds sitting on their box, image number 2.
All right.
Second place is going to go to our yellow ducks on the far left. It's a great story, really nice image, beautifully done. Love it. And
All right.
third place is going to go to Mr. Fox. It's nice to have a wildlife picture, getting a nice close-up that's almost more of a portrait. And an honorable
Excellent.
for our 4th one there.
And then I need 2 more or 3 more HMs out of these 7.
2 more, did you say, or 3?
3 more.
Well, thank you.
So this is image 1. Image 2. Image 3. Image 4. Image 5. Image 6. And the 7th.
Okay, so 3 HMs in no particular order. The first image, the sunflower.
Okay.
The bears, image number 3.
Okay.
And just next to it, the milkweed seed pod.
All right. So that's 1, 2, and 3. And there was the 4th one's on the last. Okay. Perfect. Now we'll review this contest, and then we have one more task for you, and that'll be the best of show.
Okay.
Honorable mentions. Ready to open, Matthew Rank. Congratulations, Matt. Cuddling on the Beach, Lynn Padway. Milkweed, Linda DeAngelis. Congratulations, Linda. The Miniature Bicycle, Francisco Gomez. Congratulations, Francisco. 3rd place, Red Fox, Lynn Padway. 2nd place, Carnival Prize, Deborah Aniano. Congratulations, Debbie.
All right. Give me 1 second to put together the best of show.
All right, I know I was going over the time limit a bit, Matt, but I'm hoping this isn't too late for everyone. So I apologize if I went a little too long-winded on some.
Nope, you're doing just fine.
I can't remember the date. I had to go and dinner. I didn't tell Joe that he was updated because I thought we had, I thought we wanted to go and have 2 days. And one month you already put money, you want to do another business? No, I haven't done anything. Oh, I think it, you made up one of our months, so you have to do the payment. Yeah. Okay, what about, you just check to make sure? Yeah, they have to join on the 24th and the back on the 10th.
Yeah, the calendar says March, not April. Valerie.
We're not a speaker in April.
So we got to fix that.
All right, so April is, yeah.
All right. Here we have the 3 first placed images. I will show them all to you.
Okay.
And we can go through them as much as you would like, but we need one as the best of show. So this is image 1.
Hmm.
This is image 2. And this is the 3rd one.
Yes, three lovely images. As it turns out, they are all of the natural world, sort of different elements there. each one has wonderful characteristics. It's always nice to, have a lovely butterfly on the flower. That was a very nice capture. I think the owl is, it's uncommon to see one, and then to see one in a alignment like this is a very nice event. And then we have the two, with their wonderful pose and composition as well with those. So it's a difficult choice, but I'm going to go with the owl. I think the difficulty of capturing that moment and the ability of the person to create this composition out of probably cropping in and keeping nice tones on everything is very, very nicely done. I think the moment is special. So I'm going to give that your best to show.
Excellent, thank you. And now we'll review the first place winners.
Butterfly, Karen Zahler. Beautiful butterfly, Karen. Congratulations. You want to tell us about your picture?
You need a microphone.
It was just a fortuitous capture. It
It is.
Green light on it.
It's green. No. Try again. Did you hear me?
Yeah, it worked.
It was just a fortuitous capture. I took it with the lens. It was at the maximum aperture that this lens had. That's right. That's right.
Well, congratulations. It's excellent.
Congratulations,
Nice,
Karen.
beautiful, Karen.
Lunch break, Harvey Birnbaum. Congratulations, Harvey. Nice shot. Want to tell us about your shot?
Well, I used a tripod. It was a long lens. Just going on a photo walk, looking for anything that would capture, that I would think was worth shooting. And I took a whole bunch of photos of each one of these birds and together. And this is the one I selected.
Beautiful.
Great composition,
nice.
Harvey. Very nice.
Thanks.
Did you provide the bugs or?
Did I provide what they're standing on?
No, the bugs, the food.
No, they were nice enough to bring it with them.
Very nice.
The other thing was I was worried that you would think the background was fake,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
it wasn't. And I never noticed it until I was going through my photos to pick out depth of field. And anyway, I did do some editing on this shot, but
Nice capture.
it is what it is.
Very nice.
Nice capture, Harvey.
Thank you.
Best to show. On the Hunt, Melinda Matlack. Congratulations, Melinda. Beautiful image.
Thank you. I took this a couple weeks ago, I guess, over at Mercer Meadows, on a tripod with an 850 Nikon and a 500mm lens. Just took a lot of pictures, hoping that I'd get one that was worthy of the competition. So that was this one. Thank you.
Yeah,
Very
it's-
nice.
It's so lovely, Melinda. Question for you. Did you have like a mouse on your hand or something? Because it's coming right at you. It's just wonderful that you were in the right spot.
Good job.
Oh, sometime around 5, get there at 3 o'clock to set up. No, in the afternoon, sunset,
No,
dusk.
She
yeah.
doesn't like getting up that early in the morning.
And we walked around. I've tried shooting them from 3 or 4 different locations, spots over there. by the tower and the bridge and by the parking lot. So I'm not. Yes, yes, the harriers. There's a couple harriers and there were a couple owls. The one day there was 3 or 4 owls, I think. Right, Francisco? Yeah, so I'll be back. Try again, I guess. So, but thank you.
Nice. All right, this concludes our competition for January.
Thank you so much, John.
Yes, thank you. I really enjoyed it. Such wonderful images. You have a very creative and excellent club. Very nice to see these images.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your comments.
So our next competition will be in February the 28th. It's leading lines. You'll be able to upload after the first week of February.
Did you find out about the bottle, whatever that was?
We're gonna have to look that up more.
Figure it out.
Say bye for now. Thanks very
Okay.
much.
Good night.
Thank
Good night,
you.
John.
Take care.
There's a competition that can be in a bottle or could fit in a bottle. Something.
Thank you.